What is up, everybody? I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined by my co-host,
Ricky DeCosta.
And tell the folks what time it is.
Run it back.
Yo, not only is it time to run it back, it's time to run it back on that 20-piece. And I ain't talking about the McNuggets order from McDonald's. I'm talking episode 20 right here on Run It Back. And it works out really well because we got a jam-packed show full of a ton of content. Crazy week in the world of sports and news.
Yeah, but listen, man, the fans, they've been in the comments.
They have,
man, seriously.
They have.
Listen, I got to
coming for you a little bit.
Hey, listen, I got to address something. Nice little young lady, right? Talked about, hey, boo, just cut it off. Listen, baby girl, your boy was losing it. This is coming back. You know what I mean? So your boy, I got you, as come with me with this journey. The little things will be there, but appreciate the love, appreciate the comments.
You got that little Mr. T thing going on right now.
Listen,
man.
I cleaned up a little bit because, Boo Thing was in the comments. So, hey, I appreciate the love. But listen, all seriousness, we appreciate the comments, the debate. You Eagle fans showed up this week.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean,
a lot of people on the coaching talk, too,
Coaching talk? I mean, how do they feel? I mean, we talk about coaching. Look at what the Giants did to the Eagles. But we could get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But
there.
This week's been about coaching.
Well, first of all, before we got to throw out love to all the fans. And please don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe on all our major platforms. We're looking for those 5-star reviews, please. Getting a lot more positive feedback, a lot of interaction between a lot of different topics, the reels and whatnot. Yep. But I mean, crazy week in sports. Crazy week in sports. But let's start at the top. The first thing, we obviously had a momentous game this week. We had the national title game. Michigan comes out on top over Washington. Final score 34-13, I believe it was.
Yeah, give or take, something like that.
Yeah. So Michigan obviously kind of dominated the game. I kind of stated a couple weeks ago, I felt like they were a team of destiny. They came through. Jim Harbaugh finally wins the big one. He had been close in the NFL. He had been close in college. He finally gets it done. Give me a quick recap or your thoughts on the game.
Listen, the Harbaugh family, that's the first coaching family of football.
That was really cool to see them all, too.
Right, the dad,
really cool.
the brothers.
Brother was all there, yep.
You got 2 national championships. You got 1 Super Bowl. So that was just great to see from a family standpoint. Sure. You got the Mannings, right? That's a quarterback family.
Picked up his mom and hugged her.
It was really beautiful. And Jim, the week before talked about – actually, during after that game, after they won, he talked about, give me this night, give me this day to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was so
the interview.
It was just an amazing, right? It was just an amazing experience. Let's not talk about the future. Let's live in the moment.
Absolutely.
Because what he did was phenomenal, right? He went back to his alma mater, won a national championship, brought Michigan back to prominence, right? And so you got to give him credit for that. Not a lot of people can handle that heat. Michigan was questioning, was he the man for the job a couple years ago? They cut his pay. Now, all of a sudden, he brought the Natty back. They're sitting on top of the world. And so, shout out to Big Blue. Michigan did the thing. Jim Harbaugh did the thing. So, nothing but respect. Team of destiny. Those seniors, were on a mission. And I almost felt, it's going to sound bad, I felt sorry for Washington because they were beating them up.
You could see pretty early in that game who was the dominant team at the line of scrimmage.
How physical it was. It was literally the difference in the game. Michael Penix got a little rattled because his offensive line didn't show up.
Sure.
So listen, Penix, I'm still high on him. I think he's going to do well.
Me too. I don't want people to overjudge him for one game.
His offensive line failed him that game, right? The way the running back, right, was trying to fight and put in the effort to give his team everything that they needed. That offensive line
Dylan Johnson. I like Dylan Johnson.
Right? This offensive line didn't show up. All of a sudden, you see Penix missing wide open throws because his mechanics got sped up.
Sure.
And so, really, really interesting game. If all of a sudden, they hit a couple big plays to Odunze, right? Things would have been really different in that game.
Hey, that one fourth down call, they had him wide open, but because Penix got rushed on the throw and he was just uncomfortable, just missed it by a tick.
Yeah, and then the game got out of hand. I thought they were going to make a nice little comeback. I thought it was going to be a field goal game. But originally, this is what I thought Michigan would pull away at the end. They blew it open at the end.
Sure.
So, but they were a team of destiny. Very happy for Michigan. Jim Harbaugh completing the mission. Now looking forward to what he's going to do next. What did you think about it?
So there was a lot of things. First of all, when I've watched Michigan a few times this year, and it's funny, they don't have necessarily that one outstanding player, the best in the country. Although I will say their running backs, Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, go draft them guys because those guys are going to do some damage in the league. I love the way they run. But when I watch Michigan, it's not so much. It's so cool to watch them win the national championship because it was the definition of just a good team.
Yes.
And this is symbolic in what we're hearing about the draft. Apparently, Michigan is set to potentially set a record of the most players ever drafted by one team in a draft. They're saying somewhere around 15 to 20 guys could all go for Michigan inside of this draft, which is crazy. But watching the game as a whole, even when it was, I think it was 20-13 at half, even though it was only a touchdown lead, the game never felt like it was going to be close. It just felt like Michigan was dominating the line of scrimmage. Washington could never get into a constant rhythm. Penix is my guy. You know, I've been high on him all year. He struggled. You know, it was obviously a tough game for him. I think a lot of people are going to kind of judge him unfairly based on that game. I think the better team won. Fantastic story for Harbaugh, which you alluded to too as well. Definition of, though, it doesn't take one guy. It takes a team to go and win a national championship. So it's a team, all-around team victory.
Listen, you bring up a great point. If I'm not mistaken, their recruiting class was like 10 or 13 or something like that.
Sure.
And so it was a lot of player development.
100%.
So where you have to give Jim Harbaugh so much credit is that he develops players,
Sure.
He builds a culture, he's an organizational changer. Right?
Absolutely.
And so
everywhere he goes, he's won.
Everywhere
he goes.
Right?
So all the way back to his days in San Diego, too, as well.
So he has a philosophy that works, right? So
Sure.
I think it's important that you give him his coaching credit because he's completely built the brand of Michigan.
Sure.
So many players want to go there because, you know, like Nick Saban had this. You go there, he's going to develop you for 3-4 years and turn you into an NFL prospect.
Sure.
Right. And
absolutely.
so that's what Jim has been doing.
Yep.
And here's the thing. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't all 5-star recruits. Right. And that's amazing.
The sum of all their parts. And again, this is not to put any shade at Washington, too. Washington, tremendous season in the final season of the Pac-12. Heck of a run. You know, you got to the national championship. You have multiple players on that team that are go to the NFL. From a game plan perspective, I said this about Michigan when they played Bama. They came in with the mindset, we're going to stop Jalen Milroe. We are not going to let him beat us. Well, they did the same thing with Rome Odunze. They said, we are not going to let Rome Odunze break this open and make big plays on us. And I think it was just the whole thing where they realized, you could tell they really watched the tape on Washington, and it's kind of like, once Rome Odunze gets going, that team is very hard to start, very hard to stop, because it kind of just creates the whole balance within their offense. You're so worried about the deep, they can start cutting you up short, and then Dylan Johnson can get involved in the run game too as well. Michigan just, again, you talk about this point all the time. Coaching, coaching, coaching. It matters. And this is no disrespect to Kalen DeBoer as well. I think Kalen DeBoer is an outstanding coach, and I think he could very well, if Michigan ends up having a head coaching vacancy this year, Bama, a few other teams, Kalen DeBoer could be on the move too as well, because I think a lot of big-name schools would be more than happy to go after him.
Yeah. No, listen. I think there wasn't a huge coaching disparity. I just simply think the offensive line didn't come prepared, and I like maybe the moment
they were just better up front.
Yeah, they were better up front. Maybe the moment.
I don't know who 55 is. I don't know what his name
Michigan?
is. That dude,
I think it's Graham.
Graham.
He's
that dude's a monster.
He's like a sophomore.
That's a monster. That's a guy that you can build like a defense around.
Yeah,
that's a pinnacle piece.
He really dominated. Yeah. So listen, and so when your offensive line doesn't show up for the game, that's going to make a huge difference, right? Like, could they have rolled Penix out a little bit more? Could they have brought some more people into protection to try to give him a little bit more time?
Sure.
You know, so but ultimately, Michigan was a team of destiny, and you know the better team won consensus national champion. So
it's just a more complete overall
great
team.
story.
Yep.
And listen, I'm interested to see what Jim does next. Right? I think you've
Great
completed
segue.
the mission. Now it's time to move on to the NFL.
Yeah, and hey, listen, we're not interviewing him right now, so we let him enjoy. We let him enjoy his national title. I thought watching the whole breakdown with his family, him embracing with the brother before and after, just really cool. They're
priceless moment,
family-oriented type of grouping. It's awesome to see. But now the big question comes up. You know, there's been rumors about him possibly leaving Michigan with all the drama that kind of went on with the program this year, him having to sit multiple games through that suspension. There's a lot of speculation as to what might happen with him. Some people say, why wouldn't you just stay? Especially now with the other guy that we're going to talk about, Saban. You know, we'll get to him in a little bit. Him retiring. A lot of people think, why wouldn't you just stay in Michigan? You could go and dominate college football for the next 10 years. But I do think there's a part of Harbaugh that thinks, well, I got it done now at this level, right? I won the national title. I was close to winning that Super Bowl at one point in time. Maybe go out and try it again.
His brother took it from him, right?
His brother did take it from him.
Yeah.
So if you were predicting right now or looking at it, weighing the pros and cons, what would you like to see, or what do you think Harbaugh
I want to see
him
go
doing?
to the NFL, right?
Okay.
So when you think about this, he went to Michigan to restore their prominence, restore their prestige. He did everything, and he brought a national championship to them, right? They've been in the college football playoffs 3 years in a row. They've beaten Ohio State. He has done everything that he was supposed to do. Michigan.
And it feels better with Michigan being good.
Yes,
it does.
Listen,
it feels
blue
like college football
literally,
is complete.
right?
Yeah.
Like they're one of the teams you want to see being one of the top 10, top 25 teams in the nation.
Absolutely.
Year in and year out. College football is better with them. I want to see him in the NFL because ultimately the best coaches you want to see on the biggest stage.
Sure.
And he is an NFL coach. He came back to his alma mater. He did his job. He won the national championship. Now he's got to win the Super Bowl. Hey, how are you going to be better than your brother, right? He's got the Super Bowl. Now, if you go win a national championship and win a Super Bowl,
right?
Because listen,
some bragging rights come holiday dinners.
I'm not saying this. Jim said this. He was sitting at the kids' table, right? And his dad and his brother was at the big boy table.
Sure.
All of a sudden, right? Life changes, but how do you one up your brother?
He said that too.
Right?
That's
and
funny.
listen, if John Harbaugh wins the Super Bowl this year with the Ravens, right? Things going to be a little different in the family.
Yeah, it's very true. It's
so
very
listen,
true.
But no, really would love to see him in the NFL. I would love to see him on the Chargers, right?
Okay.
Clean up that organization, right? Bring some structure. It's
Got a
LA.
great quarterback.
You're in a big market. That community needs football greatness. It needs to build a football culture. It's a lot of transplants, right? You're in San Diego, and now you're in LA. You're sharing a stadium. You need a reason to bring those fans into your stadium, right?
Sure.
And so I think Jim Harbaugh is a name with Justin Herbert cleaning up that defense. There's already offensive talent. I think perfect opportunity.
So listen, I like your Chargers take. I think especially if he wanted to go where he was in a situation, be ready to compete right away, the Chargers makes the most sense. They have the infrastructure. They have a ton of talent there. Yeah. Obviously, they have a quarterback that could be elite. I'm not going to call him elite yet because I think he still needs he's an elite talent. He's an elite talent.
Agreed.
There's no question about that. Arm talent is unquestioned. He might have the best arm in the league. But there is something interesting. There's a family dynamic here that I think a lot of people. I don't think Harbaugh wants to at least compete directly with his brother. And if he was in the AFC, right, he would have to go. There's another thing too. This whole family dynamic. You can see that they're obviously really close. Apparently, right now, there's some talk that he could possibly go to Washington. Washington has an opening. And Washington and Baltimore. It's really close. They could have the parents easily be able to travel between the two sides. And then if he met his brother, the only way it would be is for the Super Bowl for one. Okay. So there's that component. There's also this, okay? Washington's in a situation where they're almost like they're trying to clean house and have a clean slate. Well, what better way to go and do this? If Harbaugh's coming to the NFL, I have to assume he's coming for the long term. Like, this is it. This is the end. I'm setting out for a mission to go and win a Super Bowl. Well, who knows? This college recruiting class and the quarterback's probably better than a former quarterback and a guy who's gone and recruited some of these guys while he was in college. He's probably going to know the exact quarterback he wants to get. He's got the draft pick to go and do it. He's got a ton of clean slate with that draft pick money. Added in the family dynamic and the components of all of it, I could see a very realistic move where he ends up in Washington too as well.
Listen, I love that possibility.
I would hate it as a Giants fan. I do not want to have to be competing against them, but
listen. But I'll just say this, right? Like, the city does matter, right?
Sure.
And so you got D.C., you got L.A., right? And your
that's-
parents are a little older,
fair.
right? Do they want
they love that LA weather.
Hey, all of a sudden you feel a little healthier, you feel a little bit more spry.
Yeah.
So
I'm
who's
rejuvenated.
to say, right?
Venice Beach.
Exactly, right? So, listen, we'll see. Ultimately, I agree with you, right? I would love to see him in the NFC continue to raise that talent. But
go to the Falcons. Don't come to the NFC East.
Hey,
we don't need to deal with you.
Listen, there's a lot of talent on that team, right? So
that's another
we'll
team.
talk about Bill Belichick and stuff, but
like,
to me, give Jim a legit quarterback. Not a baby, not a rookie, not wet behind the ears.
Give him something to start with.
Give him something to start with. What we've seen in the NFL is if you have the quarterback, you can get everything else right. And so that's my pick.
Okay. So listen, I mean, I think either way, I guess we'll sum it up with this before we go into another. What do you think ultimately happens? Do you think he goes to the pros or do you think he stays in Michigan?
I 100% goes to the pros. Right? Ultimately, if he stays at Michigan, the best he can do is replicate what he's done. And the only way he would get true greatness is if he matched Nick Saban when it came to national championships. And that's not his desire, right? Yes, if he could win 4 national championships at Michigan, yes, you're going to be the greatest Michigan coach of all time. But guess what? Right? You're already a legend. You went back. You did the mission. You restored everything you needed to do. You brought the natty, right? And starting over every 4 years with college kids is all right.
Yeah.
Versus,
although now with the NIL and the portal, I mean, it's a little bit different.
There's a lot of shenanigans going on there, right?
Yeah.
He could possibly get suspended for 6 games. Do you want to deal with the NCAA?
He still, I don't think, fully understands like why he got suspended. I don't think he agrees with the whole process and how it went
here's the
down.
thing, right? There are laws on the books that are saying that, right, you can't collect, money from outside sources, but yet with the NIL, you have kids rolling up before they sign a contract with, fancy cars and jewelry, but yet, they held a unscheduled practice during COVID, right? A kid showed up, at Michigan and all these types of things, and is what the reason why he's being suspended, right? So that is what you don't agree with. They've investigated his phone. They've,
and he was
thought he was
what do you need my phone for?
Right?
Yeah.
So like I think, those shenanigans, like there's a lack of structure.
Yes.
There's a lot of
and
lack of structure.
The NFL provides structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he's a structure guy. He could literally rebuild the Chargers organization, right? Bring a brand, bring some integrity and some pride to that organization, right? They've sort of always been the little brother.
Sure.
Right? And so now they have an opportunity to go get one of these prominent coaches with an elite, talented quarterback and try to bring respectability to that franchise.
Well, listen, I love it too because I'm fascinated because we're going to have a ton of movement this offseason with the NFL. And you alluded to another name, okay, obviously. And first of all, just want to say hats off. I was a head coach for 4 years. I know the tremendous, and this is at the high school level, but I know the amount of work and trials and tribulations that goes into going out and building a sustainable program. Nick Saban not only did that, Nick Saban did it to, in my lifetime, the highest level that I've ever seen from the college level. Okay. We could argue about who's the best coach all time, what you're valuing, ultimately what's better, doing it at the college or the pro level. But Nick Saban is the best college coach that I've ever seen. And listen, if there's anybody who's got a reason to not like Saban, I'm an old school Auburn guy. I told you about my teams back in the day, okay?
Yeah.
War Eagle, baby. I hated watching Bama just go and dominate and watching Auburn go through the tubes. But I have to tell you, I'm almost somewhat, first of all, congrats, coach. You went out on your terms. I would say that Nick Saban, this might have been one of his greatest coaching jobs to date, too, considering that easily could have been a 3 to 4 loss team, not even in. And he got them 4 points away from another shot at, as you refer to it, and the kids like to call it, the natty. The natty, man. He was right there. It's kind of sad to me, though, because let's see who they get in to replace him. But I can't see Alabama being quite the same team that they have been. And while I've sat there and thought about, I want to see Bama, now it almost is kind of somewhat sad to see arguably the greatest coach I've seen in my lifetime at the collegiate level leaving. But hats off to you, coach. You're out on your terms, but give me your thoughts on the situation.
So listen, Nick Saban, I think what he's done, like you said, is absolutely amazing. And it's also sort of unblemished, right? There's no scandals, right? There's no
great point.
Schemes.
Yep.
There's little to talk about. Nick, other than, he's a hard ass.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And you hear little
demanded
stories.
Excellence.
Demanded excellence. And a part of it is, one of the things that he would say to his players, and I'm paraphrasing, is that, it's Friday, it's about to be the weekend, right? You have Saturday off or you're finishing practice early. It's just like, take this as an opportunity to avoid the dumb decision, right? But also make a good decision.
Sure.
Right? So you're out there, right? Like if you're going to go party, don't drink and drive, right? If you're out there, right, don't get arrested, right? You know what? You went out, you know what? It's midnight, it's 1 a.m. You don't got to stay out until 3 a.m, right? So just make a good decision, avoid a bad decision, right? So he constantly, pushed excellence. He constantly developed young boys into grown men.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I have a lot of respect for him. Develop football players in their game. And as much as I talk about coaching, I think I appreciate it so much because you land with a good coach.
Sure.
He's going to make you a better football player, a better athlete. And that excellence surrounded Nick Saban, surrounded his players. And for a stretch, you know, if I'm not mistaken, from like 2010 or 2009 to like 2020, you know, 6 national championships, almost every other year. They're in it.
Another one with LSU too, 7 total.
And one prior to that with LSU. So just literally amazing, you know, amazing coach, seeming to be an amazing guy, right? There were stories that he would the coaches would play basketball, right?
Sure.
So he's a hard ass, but like he's competitive.
Yeah.
So like as a part of exercise and working out, all the coaches would play basketball.
Yeah.
And I hear Nick is a little, trash talker, right? He's got a little game. So
sure.
You gotta show up to the court, ready to ball. So like, from afar, Nick seemed like a respectable man.
Absolutely.
Seemed like an excellent coach.
Yep.
Right. And if I had a son, right, that's the coach I would want him to play for. I'm a little hopeful that he might be finished in college, but I'm hoping somebody from the NFL wants to snag him.
I think he's done. I really do. But we'll see. I think he's going to go and end up getting like a college analyst job. But I told you, I think on last week's episode, I'm a little bit of a YouTube comment diver.
Okay.
Right? I dive into the comments. And I see a lot of people sitting there trying to, like I said before, War Eagle, I'm an Auburn guy at heart, okay? I have every reason to sit there and poo-poo Saban and sit there or say whatever I want negative about him. When you look at Alabama prior to him getting here, I got a couple of numbers right here, okay? Alabama prior to Nick Saban taking over hadn't been to a major bowl. We're talking back in like the old school bowl era since
BCS.
1999, the BCS era under Mike DeBose and the Orange Bowl.
What's that, like 8 years?
That is, because and he comes in 2007, like you said, okay? And they don't go to a major bowl then. After that, every single year of his coaching tenure, they go to a major bowl. It's not the national championship, I'm saying, but one of the major BCS bowls, okay? Up until, wasn't it last season? Weren't they in almost every single college football playoff until last season?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah. So look at these records. People want to talk about this whole, Saban's leaving now. First of all, he's 72 years old. He's earned the right to leave on his own terms, okay? But people kind of want to sit there and talk about he's leaving now because it's a level playing field, the NIL. First of all, if you want to come with these he had pay-to-plays and he had boosters and things like that, those are allegations. Yeah. Show me the proof. That's number one. Second, those allegations, you could attribute that to any number of programs, not just in the SEC, but across. Texas has had allegations, lobbied at them like that, for an example. You cannot deny what Alabama was prior to him and what they became. And there was a 20-year stretch where if you were an up-and-coming 4 or 5-star recruit and you had the chance to go to Alabama, you were going to Alabama. Because the one thing that Nick Saban proved to you was you want a shot at the pros, you want to be coached and taught up how to be a professional, I'm the program for you. There's a reason that 4 and 5-star running backs, receivers, defensive backs, linebackers, defensive linemen went and sat 2 to 3 years on that team because they knew even if I got one shot, I was going to play in major nationally televised games. I was going to get a shot to play at the Natty every single year, at least a shot. I'm not saying they went to the Natty every year. You had an opportunity. You were going to be in the mix, and you were going to get a chance to go and be marketed at the professional level. And NFL coaches around the league all sat there. Oh, you played for Nick Saban? Oh, yeah. We're going to give you a shot. We're going to give you a shot at coming to the program. So the people that want to go after and naysay him, all I say is, he earned the absolute right to leave at this time, okay? The man is 72. I said that before. 72 years old, still doing this, looks young, fit. And one of the cool stories I heard about, we were talking about his competitiveness or whatnot. I didn't realize this until I watched an interview of him yesterday. And it's funny how, like, people you maybe don't love while they're in it, you get so much more of an appreciation once you realize
Kobe and Michael,
same thing. I was always kind of a Kobe naysayer because I was a Mike guy. And I'm like, he's the copycat. When I found that news about Kobe, tears actually came to my eyes because I was like, man, I wish I took the time to appreciate him more when he was playing. But one of the funniest stories I heard about Saban, one of his tradition, woke up every morning, looked forward to his cup of coffee, and he ate 2 oatmeal cream pies every single morning. And then he sat there and he said, if I didn't get my cookies, I was cranky that day. Flashed to a video of him like getting in someone's ass on his team for not working hard enough. So listen, I just want to say it again. My hat's off to Coach Nick Saban. Heck of a career, awesome. It'll be interesting to see what the pathway is next. My leaning is that he probably goes and works some analyst job, probably gets paid gobs of money to go and do it.
Listen, let me say this. Hopefully, first of all, he's definitely not scared of competition, right?
No,
like he's
of course
playing
not.
in the SEC West, right?
Yeah.
He's playing all the top talents year over year. This is not about level playing field. It's not about talent. He's bringing in 4 or 5-star recruits every year, all the time.
Yep.
What I'm wondering is, does health have anything to do with it, right?
Yeah,
You know,
does seem like that weighed into the decision as well.
Exactly.
Yep.
You know, he seemed a little bit more monotone. He seemed a little.
He's definitely calmed down these last couple of years. He still had those tirades, but not nearly as much as
Yeah, so, you know, did health play a factor? Does he need a year to recharge? That's what I'm saying. I would love to see him in the NFL, right? You know, move on from college. I wouldn't want to see him play coach anywhere else in college, but love to, even if he comes to the NFL as sort of an advisor, right? What Pete Carroll is doing right now, and then maybe step into a coaching role. But again, I think Nick Saban still has it. He still could coach. And you know what? Hey, listen, it would be a new challenge, and maybe with some of the less changes that are going on in NCAA, the structure of the NFL might suit him a little better. Still knows a lot of these talented players from college, so
he's a Belichick disciple too, as well.
Right. So you talk about, you know, Jim. We talk about Jim Harbaugh in Washington, right? What would happen if you brought in a Nick Saban? Right, you know, to rebuild. No, to be the coach.
Oh, okay.
To rebuild the culture, right? Again, to establish a brand, right? And so, or if I am, you know, the Las Vegas Raiders, right, and I want to bring in a serious coach, they always like a big splash. You know, it'd be interested to see him, you know, somewhere there. I wouldn't want to see him in like Atlanta, right? If he's going to go anywhere, it's either you give him one of the top quarterbacks, or you give him a veteran quarterback, right? Something like that, so he has the opportunity to win right away. So, you know, again, him in LA, him in Washington to rebuild that organization, you know, for 4 or 5 years and pass it off to someone else. That would be interesting to see. So, my hope is that he's not finished coaching.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, only time will tell. I get the feeling that he probably will be. But if he wasn't, that'd be awesome if maybe he took on a new chapter. Yeah. And I'd also love to see him. I mean, who better to sit down and break down the SEC Saturday afternoon games than the old ball coach and Nick Saban. But
the problem is he can still do it.
I know. He's still good.
He still could do it.
He's
so
still good.
Maybe it'd be fun for 4 weeks, but then, you know, you got to, you know, hey, put me in, coach.
Hey, listen, the fact that he was able to at least play in the Final Four in his final year, I think it's awesome. My tip of the cap to you, Coach Saban. Best of luck in whatever your next adventure is. But that about wraps up this first segment, all right? So we're going to take a quick break, guys, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to Run It Back. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to segment number 2 of Run It Back. I am your host, Shane Mallory, joined by my co-host, Mr. DaCosta. Oh, please, beautiful people, don't forget, you know what I'm going to say. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We want those 5-star reviews growing at a really nice pace, so much so that I'm getting woken up sometimes from my day at work with an alarm of a new follow. So all good things, all good things. But spent a lot of time talking about the coaching carousel, at least on the college level right now. And obviously I talked about how Saban ruined my Auburn, you know, my Auburn Tigers for the better part of the last 20 years. We'll see maybe if they can bounce back now that he's kind of out of the picture for now. But staying on the whole topic of coaching, bombshells this week, starting with the biggest one, end of an era. Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and the New England Patriots, I guess, mutually somewhat agree to part ways. I want to go to you. What are your thoughts on this?
Hard, listen, right? Yeah, it is. You know, I think Bill probably wanted to stay, right? So it's surprising that it actually happened.
I know,
but to
you
some
heard
degree,
about it, but to actually,
to some degree, it is also overdue. There's some change in New England. Well,
let me ask you this first, before you elaborate on. Do you think it was kind of one of these meetings? Hey, Bill, we'd like to keep you on, but there's some change going to have to be made. We can't necessarily have you in charge of like all the drafting and team.
No.
Like, how do you know? Okay.
No, I think it was a situation that, listen, Kraft is actually one of the owners that like reads the tea leaves, very modern, pays attention to where the league is going. And I wouldn't be surprised. I think he wanted to get younger, right? Get a different mentality in there. Listen, Bill Belichick, he's the greatest. 6 Super Bowls. He's brilliant from a football mind standpoint.
Arguably the best defensive mind to ever coach football.
Exactly. Yeah. But sometimes when you're in one place for too long, you rest a little bit on your laurels and you rest a little bit on your history versus a young mind is hungry, is aggressive, right? Willing to take a chance, willing to work and cooperate with others a little bit more. Bill started to, from afar, it looks to see like he became a little too rigid. He was too focused on a particular type of Patriot player rather than if you're an amazing coach, right? Okay, here's the difference with like Nick Saban. Whoever you are, elite talent, average talent, Nick is going to take you to another level. Right? I think Bill did that defensively, right? But where's the offense? Yeah. Right? So that's my issue that went on with Bill, and I think why Mr. Kraft wanted to part ways and bring in some younger talent. Bill also was rigid in his coaching staff. He only wanted coaches that he knew. That's why Josh McDaniel was there so long. They're talking about maybe Bill and Josh will get back together again.
Wherever Bill ends up.
Because
McDaniels is never getting a head coaching job again.
No, ever.
It's just not happening.
Ever.
I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but I'm sorry, bro. You've tried twice. It's over.
Listen, the thing about coaching and being a head coach, you have to be a leader of men. 100%. Right? And football is definitely a merit system. Yeah. And so players respect the coaches that are going to make them better, take them to another level, make them, get more money, more glory, whatever the case is. Sure. But when you're the leader and you men don't believe you, and it's not just like an alpha thing, it's more just of a true leadership thing, and it just seems from afar he doesn't have it. But he is a very good offensive mind. Sure. And I think
defensive.
No, I'm talking about Josh McDaniels.
Oh, McDaniels. Right? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Josh with Bill is a great mix.
My bad.
So, but I would love to see, a Bill Belichick with like an Eric Bieniemy, with a Kellen Moore, right? So I think that's what the Patriots were looking for, some younger, more talented offensive mind, and I don't think Bill wanted to go in that direction. Listen, if Bill ups and goes to Washington, goes to San Diego or something like that, and then he brings Josh back and they have success, that's great. That's amazing. But could Bill be even better with a younger, more talented offensive mind? And that's what I think that's where he was just rigid and wouldn't want to change. But listen, hats off, greatest coach, amazing defensive mind. But ultimately, sometimes you're in a place for too long and you need to reset. And he needs to get hungry again. He needs to build his name. Now there's conversation, right? Was it Bill or was it Brady? Well, Brady got his chip, right? We know how great he was. Sure. Bill now has the opportunity to pick wherever he wants to go. And if he wins another chip, right, he doesn't have to validate his career, but he'll validate the debate that it wasn't only Tom, right? Sure. And, because Bill helped make Tom. Right? But Tom went out and won one without him. If Bill could go out and win 1 or 2 without Tom, now all of a sudden, right, Bill's legacy isn't only Tom.
Sure.
Right? So I think that's his mission.
I think some people forget too sometimes. Now, this is going way further back, and he wasn't technically the head coach. But Bill Belichick was the lead defensive coordinator and architect of 2 Super Bowls in the 80s with the Giants, too, as well.
But when he was a head coach with the Browns, it was a disaster. When you look at his record...
Although they did make the playoffs with him the first year there.
When you look at his overall record without Tom Brady, it isn't good.
It doesn't look great.
It isn't good, right? Yeah, so, and listen, Bill is a historian, right? He's about 14, 15 games from being the all-time leader, passing down.
He wants that.
He wants that. Right? But you can't tell me he hasn't heard the noise. Right? The whole Tom and Bill debate. And so for him to go out and win one more, he'll shut everyone up. Right? That not that he's the greatest, but that it wasn't Tom, that it was Bill. Right? Yeah. To validate the Patriot way, the Belichick way, however you want to say it, that Bill needs to go out and do that.
Okay. So you hit on a few different points. I want to kind of back up a little bit. And I want to, first of all, it's just like Saban losing Bama, it's still so weird. Like, in the NFL, the coaches move around all the time. Mm-hmm. It is a business and it is a results-oriented business. But it just goes to show you, even someone like Bill Belichick, a couple of tough years, and it's just like, okay. But I think it's more than that, too. You kind of alluded to the NFL is changing. Bill Belichick, there's no question that he can still coach defense at an extremely high level. I mean, he's losing games in which the opposing team scores 10 and 13 points, and he's losing those games. So, I mean, that's most people would kill for a D coordinator that's only giving up 10 points, 13 points in some games. I liken Bill Belichick, and I'm going to kind of go a little bit Colin Cowherd / Shannon Sharpe. I'm going to try to make an analogy. Bill Belichick was kind of like there was an owner of a restaurant.
Okay.
And Bill Belichick was kind of like the head chef. And was cooking all the meals, doing a fantastic job. The problem is that the customer started to want a new meal, and Bill Belichick could only cook one style of meal, okay? Well, if the customers keep wanting this new variety of meal, and all of a sudden you're just not giving them what they want, service and whatnot goes down. You're not getting that same type of entertainment or buy-in into the restaurant. And the owner sits there and he goes, well, guess what? You're fantastic at making steak and potatoes, but guess what? They want some chicken. They want some salmon. They want a little bit of variety. And I know it's not the perfect analogy. These guys do this all the time. But my point is with him is, and this is why I talked about him coaching defense at the highest level. He coaches defense still at the highest level, but this is turning into and shaping into an offensive league right now. Now, don't get me wrong. Your defenses still need to be able to perform and do things in big moments, okay? But you got to be able to address that offensive side of the ball. And the reason that I talk about the whole control thing and why I wonder how the meeting with him and Kraft went down is I think Kraft, this is just my opinion. Don't know if it's true, can't confirm it through any sources. I think Kraft had to sit there, give him at least the benefit of the doubt for all the surface that he had given prior and say, we're willing to keep you on. Mm-hmm. But you have to let go of some of the control in terms of the GM and the drafting. You just talked about it. The defense is one thing. Coaches, develops all these. It could be high-level talent or it could be like a 3-star athlete that he turns into a 5-star performer in his defense. But there's no ifs, ands, or buts around the fact that he has not been able to figure out drafting on the offensive side of the ball, whether it be receivers, weapons to put around his quarterback since Tom Brady left. My question, I guess, or more my idea is, whether that conversation, because I personally think that's probably how the conversation, and Bill was like, respectfully, no. If I'm going to be in an organization of the head coach, I want full control of personnel or whatnot. He's leaving now. I'm sure he's going to get a ton of opportunities and offers because I think most teams would kill to have a Bill Belichick. I'll kind of ping pong this back to you. But my question would be, will Bill Belichick, wherever he goes, get kind of the reins and full control like he did in New England?
No. Right? So to give you an analogy, right? And stick with me here.
See if you can do better than me, right? I was partway through and then I just couldn't figure out how to finish it.
I got you. So the way I look at it is, Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft, right? They're in a marriage, right? And the sex is great. Sex is amazing.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, stick with me here.
He went from MILF last week and I was talking about the sex.
Right? Right? The sex is great, right? And, to the world, it's the perfect family, right? You got 2 kids, but the person is miserable, right? And you live with them. Now, all of a sudden, right? But guess what? You go to work every day, right? 8 hours, 10 hours. The actual time that you spend with them isn't that much. But then all of a sudden, COVID hits. And you're with them 24/7. 24/7. Oh. So now all of a sudden, right, you're like, you know what? I need to change. It's been 25 years and I realize you're not that nice of a person. I can't be around you that much because yes, this one thing is good and it's brought me pleasure for so long.
The sex being the defense, I assume. Right? Yeah. We got Shawnee cracking up back here in the background.
But listen. But it's time for a change because there's more to life, right? And when we grow up, right, we realize that life and relationships aren't just about one thing.
That's fair.
Right? And so, to me, Robert Kraft realized, you know what? Right? I need to go be a little bit happier. I need to build my organization, right, in a way that I'm receiving more benefits, right, from an offensive, a defensive, a special team standpoint.
Move with the times.
For 24 years, you've given me 6 Super Bowls, and I've given you all the reins. I trust everything you do. And even though I might be miserable some days, right, this one thing was amazing, and I've reached super heights and pleasures. But it's time to move on.
I might have to take a shower after this segment. Jiminy
All
crickets.
good things come to an end. So,
Sure.
but listen, right? But a part of it is, look, when you put in 24 years with someone, sometimes, just the time's up. Not everything is meant forever. And so you give it the respect. Yeah, 24 years, but guess what? The both of you have matured. You've moved on, right? And now you value things differently.
Sure.
Right? Now, Bill can go to a new place. Right? He has his song and dance. Maybe he's matured a little bit. Maybe he can find a GM that he could work with and they could buy the groceries and he can cook the meal, whatever the case is. Hopefully Bill has evolved. But what I feel what will happen from this is Bill's hunger will come back. And I don't mean hunger like he lost it, but he'll remember what it was to start over, right? To build something new, right? And versus, if he goes to San Diego, if he goes to Washington, if he goes to the Eagles, right? We'll talk about that later.
All righty.
If he goes anywhere like that, all of a sudden now, well, you've done nothing here. Those 6 Super Bowls in New England doesn't mean anything, right, in this organization. So that's the hunger that might come back, right, in starting something new.
So it's interesting because
did that analogy make
that
sense?
analogy was
right?
That was something. That was something. Yeah, I did not see that one coming. But listen, I will say you did a good job of circling it all back around. Boy, I can't wait to see the commentary on that one. That's going to be good. So it's a business, and I get it. You're saying it won't count. But the teams that are looking, I think he's going to be the most sought-after head coach, I think, in the free agent market, if you want to call it that, for coaches. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would think
to stick with the analogy, I don't think he's the prettiest girl at the dance. Right? What about a Jim Harbaugh?
You can't just say, listen, Jim Harbaugh is definitely one, too, as well. If you were a hiring team right now, though, you think that the teams that are all in the hunt for a head coach, you don't think Bill Belichick is going to be the first call?
I'll say, no, I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. Now, it depends on the team.
Hard to argue with that resume.
Well, guess what? I'm going to throw something out there. If the Eagles lose, go get Bill Belichick.
Whoa.
Go get Bill Belichick. If the Eagles lose, get Bill Belichick. And if I'm a Cowboys fan and they fired their coach, you better fire Mike McCarthy and go get Bill Belichick before the Eagles do.
You cannot fit those two egos in one roof. Cowboys Stadium ain't big enough to fit Jones and Belichick. I am a Giants fan.
I don't want to see it happen. I don't want to see it happen.
Don't speak like things into existence.
But if I am Philly, and if I'm a Philly fan, right, it's about Super Bowls. I had a taste of the mountaintop.
Sure.
Right? What's the Eagles' biggest problem right now? Defense. What do they have on offense? Great talent.
Oh, yeah.
You put Bill Belichick with A.J. Brown.
And get McDaniels on that OC.
Again, I'd like to see a Kellen Moore. I'd like to see Eric Bieniemy. But right? Josh McDaniel would be acceptable, right? But with A.J. Brown, with Devontae Smith, with Goddard, with a Swift in the backfield, with Jalen Hurts leading the helm, and Bill Belichick cleaning up that defense, wow. Now, conversely, you put Bill Belichick with Dak, with Micah Parsons, right, with Stephon Gilmore that he already had, and you're going to throw Diggs in there at cornerback? Wow. Right? CD Lamb, Brandon Cooks, that's, and they got that young tight end, so if I'm a Eagles or Dallas fan and I don't win a Super Bowl, right? I'm firing my coach and I'm going to go get Bill Belichick. But if I'm Atlanta, I don't I'm not ready for Bill. If I am Washington, if I'm Bill, do I want them? Do I want that story with a rookie quarterback? Now, again, you win a Super Bowl, you go to Washington, you win a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback, you have cemented your legacy and you're going to have another 15-year run with a young quarterback.
Sure.
Right? Now, can he go to the Chargers? The Chargers would fit. So to me, it's a situation like the Chargers, Dallas, or the Eagles are the 3 perfect arrangements for Bill Belichick that he should want.
So 2 of those I think are actually feasible. I think that the Eagles, if the Eagles were to lose in the Bucs this first round, I think all things are on the table in terms of what they do with their coaching staff. Because one thing's pretty clear, and I was about this thing, what does Nick Sirianni actually do? Like, what's his expertise? Like, what is he doing on whatever side of the ball? Because clearly, since Steichen, he's clearly not
the same guy.
He's not an offensive guy, because since Steichen left, their offense looks like it lacks an identity. And don't even get me started. If you're the defensive guy, then you should be fired, because
everyone on that defense,
because the defense has been awful this year.
But remember, they moved on from Doug Peterson. So why
within a 4-year realm of when he won a Super Bowl?
And he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Sirianni just went to one.
Yeah.
Right? So if it's about Super Bowls, right?
Sure.
Who's better than Bill Belichick?
Yep.
You're going to be in the playoffs every year, and literally from a defensive scheme, right? You're going to be running the best scheme in that division, because the Giants just got rid of Wink Martindale.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's fair. I just can't see the Cowboys, and you and I talked about this kind of during the break and even the pre-show. I cannot see Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick working, because Bill Belichick is all about the Patriot way, keeping things within the house, talking, and Jerry Jones just can't shut up. He can't do an interview fast enough before, during, and after a game.
Listen, I hear
Belichick's
you,
just not about that.
Here's the thing. The Cowboys don't have a GM.
It's fair.
Right? And if I am Jerry
Jones, a lot of times is the guy who makes the picks.
If I am Jerry Jones, right, I am closer to death than anything else, right? And what do you want? You want another ring. You want another ring. Suck up your pride. Go get Bill Belichick, right? And go win 1, maybe 2 Super Bowls. Because guess what? The can't get right Cowboys with Bill Belichick, completely changes the organization, right? The Jones family has proven they can draft talent across the board, offensively, defensively. What has Bill Belichick been failing to do? Bill Belichick, the GM, has been horrible. He drafted, if I'm not mistaken, 2 Pro Bowlers in a 20-year...
On offense.
Right,
drafting offensive players.
Right, on offensive players, right? He passed up on DK, passed up on A.J. Brown, passed up on way too many offensive talents. That's not going to happen with the Jones family. Right? You come in, Bill, take the control, let them buy the groceries, let them find the talent. They already have the talent. You go win the Super Bowl. And again, from a roster standpoint, if I'm Bill, I want that roster versus anyone else.
So I think what you're kind of getting more to, though, is the negotiating leverage. And this is why I think Bill Belichick is going to kind of have his pick of the litter to go, because I think teams are going to be heavily after him, especially depending on how the playoff race breaks down. I doubt Dallas gets into the mix, but we'll see. You never know. If they lose to Green Bay this weekend, I would say all bets are off. Anything is on the table.
If they don't win a Super Bowl and they don't go after him, it's.
But how do you, as Dallas, Philly might be a little bit different because they have won a Super Bowl, but if you're Dallas or you're Atlanta or you're Washington, who you are you are craving right now that Super Bowl, how do you sit there? Bring in the 6-time, arguably the greatest NFL coach in our history, 6-time Super Bowl champ. How do you bring him in and dictate the terms to him in terms of what he will and not be in control of?
Okay, remember, right? Remember my analogy, right? You're good at one thing, right? So stick to the one thing you're good at, right? Coach, lead, let me.
But these organizations are not good at a lot of things.
But the Cowboys have proven that they're good at picking talented players. Micah Parsons, CD Lamb.
You're really heavy on this Cowboy thing.
Listen, here's also how I think, right? Hypothetically, right? First of all, I said, if I'm an Eagles fan, I want them, right? So that's the first thing I said. But sometimes, you have to make sure your enemy doesn't get better than you. So getting Bill Belichick as a Cowboys fan is to prevent him from going to the Eagles. Because Cowboy fans, if Bill Belichick goes to the Eagles, your reign is done. The curse of not winning back-to-back division championships. Listen. I
don't want to see that.
Dayball's been doing his thing, so we don't even have a quarterback, so I can't even put the Giants in the conversation, right? So,
I think Bill wants to go somewhere where they're set up to compete right now, too. I don't think he wants to go and rebuild.
What roster in the NFL has more talent than the Dallas Cowboys?
Again, I agree with you on the talent side. I would say that if I was going to pick Bill Belichick to end up anywhere next year, you want to know my honest opinion?
Where are you going?
Chargers. You've got a young elite in terms of talent. We talked about this earlier, quarterback in Justin Herbert. You've got talent on the defensive side of the ball. You've got skill positions, okay? You're still going to have draft picks where you can go somewhere in that regard. But you have a team that's set up to compete right now. What are they missing?
So the two
head
things
coach
I'll
should
tell
just
you.
go and put it all together.
Two things that I'll tell you, right? One, that defense is aging, right?
It is.
Two, they have major cap issues.
But who better than to bring in the guy who is the master at drafting late-round defensive talent?
Listen, I get that, right? But again, older roster, right? Keenan Allen has been injured. Mike Williams has been injured, right? So there's a lot going on there. Versus the Dallas roster, I think they're all under 27 years old.
They were young,
right?
Yeah, especially the
Gilmore
cornerstones.
is the oldest guy, right? And what are one of Dallas's worst issues right now? Linebackers. Bill Belichick is going to be able to clean that up super quickly, right? Bill Belichick's issue is that he can't identify great offensive talent, right? That whole I hate to say it, but that Dallas Cowboys roster is littered with offensive talent.
Could we agree on this, though? If the Dallas Cowboys make the NFC Championship, it's a moot point, right? I don't think they're getting rid of McCarthy if they make the NFC Championship.
They better, right? Again, so, okay, this goes back to the
because apparently now in Dallas, that's what's celebrated, making the NFC Championship.
It goes back to, I can tell you, Stephen
was that a dig? Was that a dig?
If Bill Belichick was to go to the Dallas Cowboys, Stephen A. Smith would cry. Because he knows there would be a Super Bowl near in that future, okay? But look at what Tom Brady did, right? You know, when he was a free agent, not a lot of teams went after him. And guess what? They were wrong, right? And then he ended up going to the Bucs and they won a Super Bowl, right? So all of a sudden, I think because of that narrative, things are going to change a little bit. So I do think if I am a better team, I have to truly ask myself, the coach that I have, are they better than Bill Belichick, right? And off the top of the head, I only have about two coaches that I could say, Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin, right? Those two coaches are the two that are off the top of my head. I would argue.
I'll give you Reid. I don't know about Tomlin. I'm not sure if I could agree with Tomlin right now, but yeah.
Listen, it never had a losing season. Granted, he only has one championship, but that's fair, right? So, and mind you, most of the times that he's lost, who did he lose to? Bill Belichick. Right, so
that's kind of a feather in Belichick's cap,
right? No, exactly. You know, fair, right? Sure. But younger, so on and so forth. We can talk about all those details later. But listen, again, so if I'm Jerry Jones, what do I want? I want the Super Bowl. So you go get Bill. Yeah. You messed up with Parcells, right? You messed up with Jimmy Johnson. You were cursed for all these years. You finally put him in the Ring of Honor, right? Make it right. You go get Bill. And you go get the chip.
Listen, we'll see. I guess we really get...
And you got to prevent the Eagles from doing it.
A big part of this is really just going to come down to how the playoffs break down, because the Eagles and the Cowboys could be playing each other too in a couple of weeks. So we'll see where that kind of goes. And I think he's going to have his pick of the litter.
Here's one thing I also wanted to mention too, right? If I'm also Bill, right? Obviously, I'm not scared of anything. I could coach and play anywhere, but like, look at what Tom Brady did. He went to the NFC South, right? Sure. And all of a sudden, right, he had an easy path. He knew he was going to win that division, right? Yep. All of a sudden, listen, the NFC East got some great teams, but Washington is starting over. Giants don't have a quarterback. And if he goes to the Eagles, Dallas hasn't been able to get right. If he goes to Dallas, right, he cleans Dallas up. And now the Eagles, you want to see Bill Belichick twice a year with Nick Sirianni?
Sure. No, listen again.
It changes pretty quickly.
That Dallas thing, I think, unfortunately, will just come down to a pride thing. But it's going to be fascinating to see where Belichick ends up. The two other coaches, obviously not as prominent because Bill Belichick is Bill. He's Coach Hoodie. He's a legend. Pete Carroll, he gets fired essentially as the head coach, but he still stays inside the organization. My understanding is because he still had some money left on the contract. Yeah. Did you agree with the firing?
Listen, so I think what's happening now is, again, it goes back to Bill Belichick, right? And it's better to be 1 or 2 years too early than too late, right? And so when it came to Bill, they probably
because the players love him. Right? He is a players' coach, Pete Carroll.
But you know what? Again, the game has passed him by a little bit, but
well, he's a defensive coach, and Seattle struggled the last couple of years.
Struggled on defense, but
consistent line problems.
Again, I think you just have to look at that division, right? You got the 49ers in that division, right? You have with Kyle Shanahan. You have the Rams in that division with Sean McVay, right? You have this guy.
You probably have the fourth best quarterback in that division.
Yeah, right. So you start to think about that. And the Cardinals coach, he can coach defense, man, right? And you got Kyler Murray. You might end up with Marvin Harrison Jr., right? So all of a sudden their future is looking up. They're going to be a tough out. Let me say that. Sure. So if I'm Seattle, do I want to get younger? Do I want to have a stronger offensive or defensive mind, right? Versus, Pete Carroll, right? Like, it's nice. It's a good story, but you know what?
He's older too.
I really don't think it's
71,
age, right? Yeah, he is 71, but
it's all like if you're still willing,
Yeah, still. I just think literally it's about bringing in a new voice, right? Obviously they made the right decision getting rid of Russell Wilson. He set that franchise up for success, so I think they did the right thing by making him an advisor.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. But it's cool that it's going to end amicably. And he'll still have a role in the organization.
No, exactly. But I think it's just about right again. Listen, when it comes to the end. Right, it's never pretty. Yeah. Right, and so it clearly got ugly in New England. Right, and so hard decisions were made. Yeah. So in Seattle, they just made the decision 1 year early. Right, to say, all right, you know what, we're not ready to compete with the 49ers. Right, the Rams, they took a step back. They won the Super Bowl.
Then they were awful last year.
Awful last year and fully reset this year and made the playoffs over us. Yeah. So where does that leave us?
So maybe it's more about setting up like a longer term vision for them because they're not set up to compete right now. And I'm with you. And listen, I like Pete Carroll. I mean, he had a good career over at USC too as well, and he's done very well with Seattle. Won a Super Bowl, went to another one. But I mean, just like you said, all good things eventually come to an end, and it just felt like both sides mutually agreed. Just best to, kind of end it right now.
Can I throw something wild out there?
Sure.
Maybe Pete Carroll to Michigan?
I don't know. I mean, we'll see if he's still going to coach.
I'd like to see him back in college, right? Yeah. I don't think he's going to get another NFL gig. I'd like to see him in college with a big brand.
Sure.
To, probably have a nice, 4-year run or rebuild the program, right? Something like that.
Well, and the final one too is Mike Vrabel. Okay, got fired with Tennessee. I did not agree with the firing. I think Tennessee's messed up just in terms of their roster construction around him. But I'm hearing rumors about him going to New England. I'll show you the one that I would like him to go to. I think they are set up well for him. They just need to go and get a quarterback. I would love to see Vrabel in Atlanta. They got a power running game and a young Bijan Robinson. They've got weapons. They've got a decent defense, which I'm sure he could sculpt and mold into a much larger competitor. Mm-hmm. Okay, you get that quarterback, nice, instilling mature force in him with that young team. I think that'd be a nice fit. We don't have much time left, but you give me your thoughts.
If I'm him, I want to go to Washington. I want Washington. I want the cap space. I want a top 2 quarterback. And, restart, exactly, right? Gotcha. The Falcons do not have their quarterback situation situated, so I don't want to go there. So I'd want to go to Washington. The Chargers would be a good opportunity. He'd be able to establish culture there, but I want to get out of the AFC a little bit. Washington is the place that I would want to go. Young owner, rebuild. Again, the brand, the quality. Sure. That's an original NFL franchise. So Washington, to me, is the fit for him.
All right. And again, New England, that's his home. That's where he played as a player too as well, because that's definitely a possibility too as well. But it's going to be fascinating. We're going to have a lot of weeks because the season now, we're getting into the playoffs. We'll have a lot of time even after the season to talk about some of these moves. And if I'm
New England, I want him.
Yeah. Right? I mean, listen, he's one of your guys, obviously, and he's proven that he can coach. So, but listen, that's all the time we have for segment number 2, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with segment number 3 when we come back to
Run It Back.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Run It Back, the final segment 3. I am your host, Shane Mallard, joined by my co-host, Ricky DaCosta. And beautiful people, don't forget, please, you know what I'm going to say? Please like, comment, and subscribe. We want those 5-star reviews and keep eating up on all those reels, baby. I love watching all the views go up, and I love the interaction in the comments. Even though some of y'all were coming at my co-host a little bit last week, I mean, I had to make sure I kept it real and, got my boys back in the comments or whatnot. No, it's all in good love and fun.
But listen, I don't mind a hot take, right? And I know I was talking about Bill Belichick.
We're going hats.
Right? Ooh, right? I was talking Bill Belichick and the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Big episode 20 I had to wear for the segment.
But what I was thinking during the break was like, what has been a team that Bill has prevented for a long time from making the playoffs, winning the championship? The Buffalo Bills.
Mm.
So if I'm the Buffalo Bills Mafia, do I need to rethink my coaching situation with a Bill Belichick?
Oh, man. You are coming hot take after hot take listen, right here.
Coaches can be a little petty.
Sure.
So if it wasn't quite mutual between the
Patriots.
Patriots.
You're saying you go back to Buffalo and be a thorn in New England's side.
I'm just saying.
Sure.
If it wasn't quite mutual, if Bill might be a little salty, you could easily get Josh Allen. It's already a good defense.
Oh, yeah.
There's already a good running back.
Ton of
with
talent.
the Stephon Diggs.
Ton of talent. Yeah. Listen, it's not crazy. Again, what I was saying to you is the same thing with the Cowboys and the Eagles. It's really going to be predicated on how these teams perform in the playoffs. I'm very interested to see how the Bills do because to finish their game on a 5-game win streak where Josh Allen still had some up and down games shows you they found out the balance to not rely on just Josh Allen to go and win them games. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see
Bills
how it breaks
Mafia,
down.
I want you in the comments, right? Would you take Bill Belichick as your head coach right now?
So funny because so many of them probably hate him, but at the same time they're secretly thinking, yeah, we would.
Hey,
we would.
just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So listen. Let's do a quick recap of Week 17 before we kind of do like somewhat of a summation of our first regular season on this podcast. You know, we're going to get through a lot of different things.
I know you're excited. I know you're excited.
I didn't just put the hat on because it looked good, you know? But listen, I guess the biggest game that stuck out to me this weekend, and it had to be Bills-Dolphins. So it was a good thing. You segued right to that. Great game. I'll tell you this. You tell me if you agree or disagree. As soon as that game started, we were like, oh, man, this feels like a playoff game. Like it had that electricity, that magic. You could see both teams playing like this game is really important. And I was saying to Shawnee, actually, when you had taken a break during pre-production, I said, wow, like just looking at the way Buffalo came out and approached this game, it seems like they know now they're in the playoffs. We're going to take some shots here. Why the heck not? You know, we're in the playoffs no matter what we went for it. And it started off a little bit ugly. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions in when they're on the Dolphin side of the field. You know, they're going and driving for potential scores one way or another, whether it have been touchdown or field goals. And that had me a little bit worried, especially because a little extra riding on that game would have been deciding the season's picks. But I think what I see with Buffalo, and I kind of alluded to this before, the fact that Josh cannot have his best game, and they have found ways. Usually when Josh throws multiple interceptions or has multiple turnovers, that's usually a death sentence for them. And this goes back to a point that you've been bringing up for a while now, bringing in Joe Brady, balancing out the offense overall, but also Buffalo showing that we're not just a Josh Allen-led team. We're the sum of all our parts. Yeah. That defense is outstanding. Some of those run plays, they were just flying up and laying wood. Like you could just see the intensity of that game and what it meant to both teams. Wasn't the prettiest game, but beautiful game. Buffalo goes and wins on the road in Miami. Josh Allen continues his dominance over the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. They win they win the division for the second year in a row now. Give me your thoughts overall on that game.
Listen, you know, it was like you said, it wasn't the prettiest game.
Sure.
You know, the Bills won; they deserved to win. You know, again, Josh Allen made me super nervous that game. Yep. Right, interceptions in the red zone. He missed Stephon Diggs wide open, right? Like again, their connection is not 100% on the same page right now. But that's the only thing that scares me, right? Yes, they're 5 in a row. They're an extremely dangerous team. But you know, here was a must win.
Sure.
And Josh Allen didn't start the game great.
Yep.
Give him credit. They finished. They got it back. They got back together on the same page with the run defense, with the running game, with the quarterback position. So I think the Bills are going to be extremely dangerous, but also the Dolphins weren't 100%.
They're banged up, for sure.
So
not entering the playoffs in the greatest of circumstances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably going to be a quick out. It would have been interesting to see the Dolphins
especially
with Waddle,
with the weather they're calling
with
for in Kansas City too.
It would be interesting to see fully healthy because Tyreek was doing the thing and he's a little banged up.
Yeah.
But again, the dominance over the Bills is over the Dolphins. The Bills over the Dolphins are still there.
Sure.
And I think the Miami Dolphins are 1 year away. Right, because you see some of the young coaching mistakes.
It sounds so familiar. I feel like somebody maybe on this podcast might have said something like that. Who could have said something so smart?
Injuries caused them to be 1 year away, right? Because guess what? That Bills game would have been different if Chubb was there.
Yeah.
Right? if Waddle was there, the game was going to be a little different. And so all of a sudden, those mistakes that Josh made might have been much more costly.
Could have been.
Right? Yes, they were heavily focused on, Tyreek Hill.
Sure.
But then Waddle balances that out. Yeah. Mostert gives you a little bit more power. Listen, A-Chan is dangerous and, 8 yards a pop, but sometimes you need that bruiser, right? That veteran experience, and that's where, Mostert comes in and he can really bang. Yeah. So it would have been interesting to see, fully healthy. But again, you saw some of throughout the season, you saw the inexperience in the coaching with Daniels, right? He's growing. So, again, hats off to the Bills, number 2 seed. They did what they were supposed to do.
Sure.
But guess what? It only matters if you show up now in the playoffs.
It's fair.
And listen, you got a smooth ride. You technically should beat the Steelers. The Steelers are banged
Especially
up.
TJ Watt.
Right?
That's huge.
Everything is wide open. The Chiefs are banged up. The Steelers are banged up.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see the Ravens until the finals. Right? To the AFC finals, right?
The AFC Championship, sure.
Listen, everything's in front of you.
Could get a little rematch with Kansas City, too.
And it would have to be in Buffalo. So everything has lined up perfectly for Buffalo, but will they show up? Will Josh Allen show up when it matters? And that's what I want to see.
Yeah, no, that's what we're waiting to see, sure. Listen, I think the playoffs are going to be fascinating. We're going to get some great matchups. This wild card weekend, too, there's definitely some good games, too, as well. I'll tell you the other thing. I'm just looking at Week 17, kind of the recap. Probably the one that surprised me the most, man. What happened to the Jacksonville Jaguars, man? They kind of just fell apart down the stretch. Now, I know Trevor Lawrence got hurt a little bit and banged up, but I think there's some questions still about him because – first year, okay, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Urban Meyer was just not running a well-structured program. He was not a good coach at the NFL level. Yeah. And people, I think, judge Trevor Lawrence, a bit harshly. You bring in Doug Peterson, second year, all of a sudden you see Trevor Lawrence emerging as one of the best. He was easily a top 10 quarterback in his second year. Well, fast forward to this year, and again, I think by the end of the season, I don't know. There might be more questions necessarily than answers about Trevor Lawrence. I think he's talented. I think he's got but does he have the drive? I mean, there was a lot of things spoken about him even before the draft where he and his wife now too both said, football isn't everything, it's not and that is a question you need to have going forward. If you're going to go sink your money into a number 1 overall pick, level of his talent, I want to know at the same time, is football your everything? I need to know that before I'm about to go sink $270-80 million into you.
Listen, you're 100% right. I think, there's been rumors out there, how much does Trevor Lawrence love the game?
Sure.
Right? And listen, you could be intelligent. You could have other hobbies. You could have other desires. And as I mentioned before, some people play for the money, right? Some people play for the glory and the fame, and some people play for legacy, right? And so I'm not quite sure which one Trevor Lawrence is, right? And so, that team was loaded on defense. That team has hella weapons on offense, right? Those skill positions across the board.
Yeah.
The offensive line could have held up a little bit better, but they were solid.
They could improve there.
They were solid, good enough to get them in the playoffs and go far.
I mean, they had it. They were in the driver's seat for this division, and they kind of folded.
It fell apart, right? Yeah. So now it goes to leadership, right? Is it Doug Peterson or is it Trevor Lawrence, right?
And so combo.
Doug Peterson has proven to be a Super Bowl winning coach.
He's won a Super Bowl.
Right? So you can give him the nod. He's an offensive guy, very talented that way. And so is it Trevor Lawrence, right? And so it's really interesting to see. Now, give him a little credit, right? They came back against the Chargers back, a couple years back. And so,
last year, when he had the 4 interceptions in the first half, came back through 4 touchdowns.
So think about that, right? Like how badly he started, right? So again, is it his leadership? Is it his love for the game? And the guys in the locker room know, right?
I don't question the talent at all.
Yes,
Trevor Lawrence has the talent and skill to play in the league.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying he doesn't have heart. Right? Because when he's on the field, you could see, some heart, right?
That desire, that mentality to be the best.
Is it about just getting a big paycheck and then living comfortably with your wife, which is fine for some people, but right, other players on that team,
all fair questions,
right? They're playing for their family, their contracts aren't going to be as big, right? And so if their leader isn't 100% in, or he's just waiting to get his bag, and then he's going to pull up Andrew Luck and retire early at 28, 29, I could see that happening with the Trevor Trevor
With
Lawrence.
Luck, though, Luck was just getting so beat up. I think he just didn't want to take on the. With Lawrence, we're not sure. Like, could he just step away?
Luck was highly intelligent, right? So there's so many other things that he could do. So like, if Trevor is so happy with his family and his lifestyle, with $50 or $100 million in the bank, right? You know, how much do you want to take those hits? How much time do you want to put in, right? Versus the other guys that are making $2-3 million, right? You know, and again, if you don't make it to those 3 years, you don't get that NFL pension, right? So when you're the leader, when you're the quarterback, you're not just playing for yourself. You're playing for everybody else, because if you make it to that playoff, you get that playoff check. You make it to the Super Bowl, you win the Super Bowl. Everybody's getting the bag.
Sure.
And so, you know, that's what I'm, waiting to see. But guess what? When you look at the Tennessee Titans, right? Derrick Henry's last game, they had heart. Mike Vrabel had that team ready to play.
They went out and battled,
They wanted it more, they had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Right? So that's leadership.
Except
leadership on the coaching on the coaching level, and leadership at the quarterback position. Now, the Tennessee Titans, that was all coaching, and they're veterans.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And listen, one door slams shut, another one opens. Hats off to the Houston Texans. I mean, you've been high on C.J. Stroud all year. Yep. I jumped on a little bit later. But, I mean, man, heck of a year for the Texans, being that as a lot of people, experts, tab them as one of the least talented teams in the league coming in. Well, they obviously overachieved, 10-7. They wrap up that division. That was a heck of a game, too, with them and the Colts, too, because whoever won was going to take it there.
That was a playoff game. If you win, you're in.
Yeah, and I felt so bad for the running back on the Colts, because it was just, he makes
Taylor?
one mistake. It wasn't Taylor.
No,
it was
the other,
Goodson, I think his name was.
Again, it wasn't it wasn't the greatest throw.
No, it wasn't.
Right? Because, he's running one
play
direction.
he could have made, but I mean.
But again, they say if it touches your hands.
I don't like, though, when everybody piles on a guy. Like, listen, guys, it's one play. He made a mistake.
First of all, he didn't make a mistake. It was a bad throw.
Yeah.
It was a bad throw. Where's Minshew?
Yeah.
Right?
And they're way above and ahead of where a lot of people expected them to be this year, especially based on last season, losing Anthony Richardson so early in the year. Hats off to the Colts. They're going to be back. Shane Steichen had a heck of a first year as a head coach. Yeah. They're not going anywhere.
Their future is bright. Their future is bright. But
and
again,
that division all of a sudden
I don't blame the running
stronger.
back. I blame the quarterback. That was a bad throw, period.
Yeah, and he's a backup for a reason. You're going to have those plays. And in crucial moments, sometimes maybe you can't rely on a backup necessarily to make, the greatest throw. The other kind of division that was close to, I got to go hats off to the Packers, too, because I was not really high on them, Jekyll and Hyde back. And I was really low on Jordan Love for most of the season. My brother-in-law kept trying to trade for him in Dynasty. I'm like, why do you want to trade for this guy? He's terrible. Like, it's just, you get the one game and then you get one horrible game. Hats off to him. He and the coaching staff team to figure something out late in the stretch. They win 2 games to close out the season, and they're in the playoffs. They and the Texans, I feel like, are both in very similar spaces. Let's say their season ends next week. They're playing with house money. Their seasons, to me, already measure as a success. Anything they do after is just par for the course.
I have to give a hats off to the Packers organization. They've proven that they have a model when it comes to quarterbacks and properly developing them. They did it with Aaron Rodgers.
And drafting around him as well.
They're drafting around him. Yep. Like, for whatever
reason.
They're
not a free agency team.
Not at all.
They're
Second round, they know they're going to get a playmaking wide receiver.
Sure.
There's a lot of young talent. And so they've killed it. So, listen, the coaching staff has coached them up this year, but I got to give the organization the most amount of credit, because I was skeptical. A lot of people were skeptical. Sure. You got off of Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And Jordan Love, he was a little shaky. His accuracy was questionable, but you could tell by the way he moves. He's been watching Aaron Rodgers. I see a little Favre, there as well. So, the Packers know what they're doing at the quarterback position.
Yeah, they edge out the Seahawks, obviously, for that last spot, too, as well. Hats off to the Bucs, too, as well. Wasn't pretty, but they got it done. They won
Todd
that
Bowles,
NFC South.
right?
Yeah, Todd Bowles, good for him. You know what? Again, I haven't been the biggest Baker fan, but I can come around on people.
Hey, he surprised me.
Good for him.
He surprised me.
And he's showing you that he can go be a solid starting quarterback in the league. The one game we got to talk about before we get into the summation of this season and whatnot, though, is how about the G-men going and stomping on those Eagles? Eagles are not entering the playoffs in the greatest of situations.
Can I just say this before, right?
Sure, go ahead.
What in the world are the New York Jets doing, right?
New York Jets?
Yeah, no, the New York Jets.
Right,
why would they win that game and go from the 6th seed to the 10th seed? So I'm bringing
New York
that,
teams don't tank correctly.
Amen. Amen. So now, look, listen. From the Giants' standpoint, it didn't matter. We went from the 5th seed to the 6th seed.
Sure.
Doesn't matter, right? So I'm very happy they won.
Yeah.
I think
is it a byproduct of them playing well, or is it just the Eagles just kind of tailspin?
It was going to be a close game regardless. It's going to be a close game within a touchdown, right? You know, the Giants are playing hard. You know, Dayball's a hell of a coach.
Sure.
I am questioning Dayball's leadership a little bit because they
With
got
all
rid
these
of Winks.
rumblings within the coaching.
Right? You got rid of your defensive coordinator. The only reason why that team was good was that defense, and you decided to fire his staff. And force the defensive coordinator to get out of there. So I'm questioning Dayball.
Just not
now.
a good reflection on the organization in general. There's some turmoil.
So, you know, listen.
And you've got things to figure out as it is. The quarterback, the offensive line, throw in all these problems on top. It's just not great.
Exactly. You should have retained that defensive staff because they did their job all year long. They kept them in games, right? They developed Banks, nice, you know, young defensive
I like
talent.
him. He looks going to be good.
So
Kayvon really came on this year.
And they fired the linebacker coach, right? And the linebackers killed it, right? So
Bobby Okereke, the young kid McFadden that they drafted last year.
Yeah. So, all right, we talked about coaching. The Eagles, right, again, in the comments, had a lot of questions there. Right now, everything is falling apart, and who's going to be the person to bring them together, right? I've talked about coaching. I've talked about Jalen Hurts. At this point, it's just about who is going to be the leader, who's going to be the man that brings them all together. Right? It could be a coach. It could be the quarterback. It could be AJ. It could be the running back. Someone has to make a decision. Hell, it could be Kelsey.
Sure.
Right? Someone has to say, hey, listen, we're in the dance. It wasn't pretty.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, we were 10-1.
Sure.
We were in the Super Bowl last year. Right? So we have a shot to go back. So you know what? Let's step up and get it done. It was it's been, 5 in a row now? 4 in a row? It's been ugly. It's been terrible. But you know what?
Even the games they won weren't pretty.
But you know what? It's 0-0 right now.
That's true. It's a whole new season. However you ended the season, it doesn't matter. All that matters is this next game.
If they lose, everybody got to get fired.
Yeah. So listen, before we get into these playoff matchups and breakdowns, okay, valiant effort, my man. I thought a couple weeks ago this matchup
you started.
this
How
year,
you finish?
It was done.
Put that pressure on
I thought
them.
it was done. You put a heck of pressure on me. You won week
Falcons suck.
You did win. You did win week 17. You went 10-6. I went 9-7. But the career standings for this year in the first inaugural pick segment, we cap off. We ended the season. Ricky DaCosta finishes with a record of 162-10. Shane Mallory finishes with 164 and 108.
Barely.
He wins the first year of picks. Hey, what did Ricky Bobby say? It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. I don't even think that was Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
It ain't. If you're first,
if you're not first, you're last. Yeah,
right?
I get it. I'm last. It's all right.
Week 17, we still got to keep the tradition going. The final stud of the week pick. You want to go first? Or you want me to go?
I'll go first. Okay. Listen, my stud of the week, Derrick Henry. Again, the pride that he went out with, 19 carries, 150 yards. If you remember the week before, everybody was saying he was done. He was trash. It was 20 carries on 30 yards, something of that nature. All of a sudden, he comes out 19 carries, 153 yards, and a touch. So Derrick Henry, a lot of pride. What he's done in Tennessee has been amazing. So,
I'm going to say Natty, say Tutty, bro. A little Tutty.
Nice little touch. Yeah. But, no, again, great to see that. His workout videos are insane. So
you've seen the stiff arm one where he sits on the Bosey ball with one foot. The guys all come by and he's just stiff arm. I'm like,
it's
you're
amazing.
A freak, dude.
Yeah,
you're a freak.
100%. And so listen, I think he just turned 30, but I think he's got a good 2-3 years left in him. Want to see him with a playoff caliber team next year, Super Bowl contender. So that's my stud of the week.
All right, listen, can't be mad at it, man. And I hope wherever he lands, it's on a competitor because he deserves to go and play meaningful football games. Mine, though, got to go with the wide receiver from Minnesota Vikings. 1, Justin Jefferson. All right.
Okay.
12 receptions, 192 yards, 1 tutty. All right. And the reason that I bring him up, too, is because this man missed 7 games. And with that game, put himself still in 9 games over 1,000 yards. That's insane, okay? Just imagine if we got to play the full slate of the season. So...
Or imagine if Kirk Cousins...
Yeah. I threw this jab earlier, and Shawnee was kind of laughing at it. I got a lot of people trying to tell me, CeeDee Lamb, he's the best wide receiver in the league. No, he's not, guys. First of all, Tyreek Hill owns that title. But if you just look at that and project it over, he probably finishes just in front. I would say CeeDee Lamb's got an argument for 3 or 4, but I think right now 1 and 2 is solidified between Hill and Jefferson. And I'm sure you'd have people argue back and forth which one of those guys
Listen,
is
hit us
one.
up in the comments, right? You know, is it CeeDee Lamb? Is it Tyreek Hill? Is it Justin Jefferson? What about a Jamar Chase?
Sure.
Right? Do
and
you
hit
throw
us up
an
on
AJ
all those
Brown in there?
coaching moves too as well, like Belichick, Harbaugh, all those guys. Where do you think some of those guys are going to end up? Because you guys got all really into the coaching
and like I said,
comments.
Bills Mafia, do you want that pettiness? Do you want to see Bill Belichick coaching in Buffalo?
Sure.
Hey, Dallas, would you take Bill? So it's interesting to see Jerry Jones, put your pride aside.
Sure.
Philly, if you fall apart, are you going to go call Bill? And remember, the Jeffrey Lurie, the Eagles owner, is from Boston. So he's got a little connection out there.
You never know, man. So listen, you ready to get into these playoff picks?
Let's do it, baby.
It's like a brand new season, man. It's a brand new season.
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, we're starting off right here. We'll go to you first. Cleveland Browns at the Houston Texans. That is our first Saturday game. It's at 4:30. Who you got?
Listen, I think here everyone's on the Browns. You know, the Texans had a great season.
I don't know if everyone's on
I think
them,
everyone's on the Browns. But listen, I'm going to continue to ride this team. Coach of the year.
Feel like he's the underdog.
Coach of the year, right? Rookie quarterback. Somehow, some way, the Houston Texans pull this one out at home to continue the run.
Okay. Listen, I can't hate it, especially because they are the home team. I do think this is a competitive game. And like I said about Houston and Green Bay, they're playing with house money. Anything they do at this point is just par for the course. They've had successful seasons. They've defied the odds. Got to go Cleveland, though. That defense is nasty. They play in the best division in the league. I don't even think that's an argument. Since my man Chicks Dig the Deep Ball, Joe Wacko Flacco came in, Cleveland's been doing things on that offense. I do worry a little bit about some of the injuries, but I feel like in the end of this game, Cleveland is the difference. I got the Cleveland Browns.
All right.
All righty. So now we go to Miami versus KC. I won't take too much time with this. I was reading about this game earlier. I think Kansas City beats them, and I think they beat them pretty bad. They're saying that game is taking place. It goes 8 p.m. They're saying that game is going to be around 10 degrees, and with the wind chill factor, it could be almost minus. Miami has lost their last 10 games in a row when the starting temperature is 40 degrees or below. I think Miami kind of blew their opportunity to get the most out of their playoff run by not winning that Buffalo game. I think KC wins, and I think they win it going away.
Listen, it's playoff time. I'm rocking with Patrick Mahomes all day, every day.
And bet against the king.
And listen, at the end of the day, if those receivers catch the ball, the Chiefs are going to play the Ravens with a shot for the Super Bowl.
So you got the Chiefs. All right. So we go back to you now. Pittsburgh versus Buffalo.
Listen, Mike Tomlin, right? Those Steelers are going to make some noise, but the Buffalo Bills are going to win.
Okay. You had me a little bit worried there for a second. Now, listen, here's what I'll say.
Listen, Steeler fans, I want to take you guys. You're hurt, though. You're hurt, right?
I'm with you.
I think if you guys were healthy, Mason Rudolph, you could put some true pressure on the Buffalo Bills. The weather, you got the toughness, but I wish T.J. Watt was there.
Yeah, no TJ Watt. I'm sorry. I thought I would have Buffalo as the favorite even with TJ Watt. Without TJ Watt, I just don't see how Pittsburgh goes into Buffalo and wins this game. The way Buffalo is playing to right now, coming off of 5 straight wins, they just got it rocking on all cylinders right now. I like the Buffalo Bills.
All right.
All right. As much as this one pains me, okay.
Are we on Cowboys-Packers?
Once again, we got Green Bay versus Dallas. Listen. Green Bay playing with house money. Wouldn't be surprised it's a more competitive game than I thought. I think Green Bay can put up some points in this game. I think they can surprise.
You got to take the Packers, right?
But I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys. Their numbers at home are tough to contend
Cowboys
with.
lover right here, guys. Secret Cowboys lover.
Something like that. Listen, I have to at least give Dallas the benefit of the doubt. They are the 2 seed for a reason. They've been pretty much close to unbeatable at home, especially when they have the refs working on their side and in their pockets. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. Just kidding, Cowboys fans. Not
Listen,
really.
I'm on the Cowboys here. The Cowboys are undefeated at home. Everything is set up for them to make a Super Bowl run. And so the Eagles have fallen apart. So I'm rocking with the Cowboys here.
The Packers, you mean? Oh, no, I got what you're saying. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Packers?
I misunderstood you.
Them boys.
Yeah, no, I got you. Okay. This is the game without a doubt that I'm looking forward to more than any other game this weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be good.
The trade that set it all up and set this matchup. Does Matthew Stafford go and get his first dub in Detroit? Okay, he can't do it as a Detroit Lion, but he's going to go get his first playoff win. I'm rolling with the Los Angeles Rams to pull the big upset. I think this is an epic game. I think it's going to be back and forth. There will be points on the board. Can't wait to watch it. Two quarterbacks both playing against their former teams. It's hard because I like both teams, but I like the Rams.
Listen, we talked about, inexperienced coaches. Dan Campbell had nothing really to play for last week. Sam Laporta got
hurt. Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown was limping a little bit at the end of that game.
L.A. Rams here with the upset.
You know what I wish? The only way they could make this segment better is, remember that old countdown music you used to have back in the day where it'd be like, dun, 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 dun. Maybe Shawnee Production could hook that up a little bit. There's probably some copyrights to that music. So, all right. Rounding out the playoff games, we got the one Monday night game, all right? And we've got the tail-spinning Philadelphia Eagles going to Tampa. Who we got in this game?
Listen, like I said, I think the Eagles are going to step up here. I think the Eagles are going to step up, and they're going to win it somehow, some way. Jalen Hurts, too much talent. Now, if A.J. Brown really is hurt, I think the Bucs are going to upset him here. But I am going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Like you said before, all the teams start 0-0 at the start of the playoffs. This is the chance for the Eagles to go and get a reset. Tampa's had a nice season, but they do play in a weaker division. I like Philly to go and figure it out and win this game. I think it's a close game because Tampa does have a good defense, but I like Philly to go and win it. Of all the games, which one are you looking forward to the most?
Listen, Matthew Stafford, right? Obviously, listen, I'm a Chiefs guy, so I'm looking forward to the Chiefs game. Want to see the Chiefs get it right. I just want those right receivers to catch the ball.
Yeah.
Right? So, I think Kadarius Toney is going to step it up in this playoff run.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Somehow, some way. Hold on to the ball.
I'm with you. That Los Angeles, Detroit, man, I mean, that's like a Hollywood movie script there. You couldn't write it up any better than that.
McCarthy playing Green Bay.
That's
right?
fair,
that's
too.
a little,
Sure.
That's a little rivalry right there.
I just think the matchup is not quite as even as like the Rams in Detroit. Yeah.
Right, but the Packers always play them tough, so you got to, give the Packers some respect there.
Yeah, listen. Well, listen, that wraps up the final segment of Running Back. But please, people, before I sign off, please don't forget, like, comment, and subscribe. We are growing at a great rate, but we
Where
can
do you want Bill
always
Belichick
grow
to go?
faster. And give us that feedback and comments. We're going to have a lot of reels, especially about the coaching moves. Where do you want or expect certain people to end up? What happens with Harbaugh? But that's all the time we have for this week. Don't miss us next week when we're back. Me and my co-host, too.
Run it back.
Run it back.